Friday morning, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk Live. Or I got to start getting used to this name because we just recently changed the name. LTL True Crime Podcast. Recent name change, so I'm still catching up with that. But I thought it was only natural as this is the genre that we spend our time here with. And I want to welcome everybody back into the live show here. We're live. We're actually broadcasting across 3 platforms today. We are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube, of course, where the home base of LTL True Crime Podcast is. And we are live on Twitter right now. I want to welcome everybody back in to the live show. If you're here live, of course, you can chat. Join us over on YouTube. Come over on YouTube, hang out with us, LTL True Crime Podcast. We'd love to see you in the chat over here. And if you're not subscribed over here on the channel, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this content. But if you're here live right now, chat. On the right-hand side of the screen, we have amazing chat, amazing moderators, and amazing subscribers here. So if you're not watching this live, of course, you're watching this on replay, leave it down in the comment section, #replay. We always love that. So we're going to get back into a little Idaho content today. Everybody loves a good Idaho update. We have a lot to talk about, of course, as this case just continues to evolve and spiral, and areas we kind of just trying to grab onto that new piece of information or that new piece of evidence that could break the case. You know, everybody keeps going over this over and over and over again. I've always said this all along. The facts are right there in front of us. It is us to look at them and discover what happened. I think we'll get an interpretation at the trial as to what happened in this case, but we truly won't ever know every single intimate detail because we were not there. And I know that as many people that have followed this case over the last year, they want to be that fly on the wall, and they want to know that question of what happened in that house. Now, for my friends, I truly believe that they have the ultimate person in custody that committed this crimes, and he will have his day in court. That is Bryan Kohberger. And, you know, we will find out, and he will get due process, and he will be even proven guilty or not guilty in this crime. So I just want to do this really quick and recognize I saw that Rogue has upgraded her membership to become a, what is my membership level here? Detective Insider. So I do appreciate that. Thank you for bumping up, supporting LTL True Crime Podcast. It's much, much appreciated. All right, I won't kill you too much more with the intro here. We're going to get right into this first article. We're going to talk about the cameras in the courtroom, and this one is from Newsweek. And I thought this title was a little bit of clickbaity when I first went through it. It's very interesting. And it says, Bryan Kohberger's trial update raises questions about roommates' testimony. And this was on October 27, 2023, again from Newsweek. And we'll go into this. The judge overseeing Bryan Kohberger's case in Idaho will allow to continue the use of cameras in the courtroom, but plans to exert more control over them, sparking questions about how cameras could impact sensitive witness testimony. Of course, we know all of the background here. I'm just going to skip down here in the article. During Thursday's hearing, judge announced that it would continue allowing to still have video cameras in the courtroom despite opposition from the defense and prosecution. Judge said he planned to exert more control over the cameras, although it's unclear how he planned to do so. I said this. I think the easiest way around this, and I think that everybody can agree here, is that we need amazing, we need complete transparency in this case. With the I mean, literally, this is the case of the year. This is the case of the decade. This is the case of the century. I mean, we all want transparency. We all want to see what happens in that courtroom to lay all of the questions to rest that has surrounded this case. And believe me, there are conspiracy theories, there are questions, there are answers. There is just everybody truly ingrained in this case. But to have a camera in the courtroom, to be in there, I think a fixed camera right in the courtroom, open for all of us to see, no hidden tricks, no magician tricks. We can all see what's going on. And I think that's the way that it needs to be. So judge went on to say, I'm not going to ban cameras in the courtroom, but I need to control over what cameras are doing. Judge said at the hearing, according to the report by the Seattle Times, I know I can only control so much, and that's why I continue to urge people to be patient and have some dignity and some restraint. It goes on to say both of the defense and the prosecution have argued against the use of cameras in the courtroom. The prosecution said that the cameras should be barred from the courtroom during certain testimonies from young and vulnerable witnesses, such as the victim's two roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. I'm going to tell you right now, those are going to be some of the most crucial testimony in this case. Those witnesses have to be ready, they have to be prepared, and they have to be able to do this because we need to hear from them. They are the two surviving roommates in this horrible crime. And it's very important that they are given the opportunity to do this in a safe space, in safe control inside that courtroom, and that they're not harassed. And again, they're going to be the crucial piece of evidence in this case. Or one of the crucial pieces. I'll go back. One of the most important crucial pieces in this. So it says the defense previously accused cameras and focusing on Kohberger's fly. Big deal. Fuck them. And he said that the journalists have disregarded judge's request to cease focusing exclusively on Mr. Kohberger, according to the legal filing in August. Newsweek reached out to Kohberger's public defender, Ann Taylor, by email for comment. Brad Rudley, deputy attorney in Latah County prosecutor's office, had advocated for a camera ban, but requested that the judge at least prohibit cameras from filming or shooting sensitive evidences or witness testimonies, such as that as Mortensen and Funk. I can't say that I don't agree with that. If that's going to make them comfortable, that's going to make them better witnesses. If that's going to, but we, still have to have the audio. We still have to have transparency in that courtroom. Listen, you can turn the camera off or shift it over to a certain other point in the courtroom when those witnesses that they don't want to be on camera, that's fine. If I don't think that the sensitive evidence should be shown, I can only imagine what it's going to look like. I know there's a lot of people out there that are very curious, that are very into that stuff. But if that's going to make this trial more comfortable and ease to get to the conclusion to find out if Bryan Kohberger is guilty or not guilty, I'm fine with that. I'll go on record and say that. Judge said he would issue a final decision on a later date, making it unclear what impact more control over cameras in the courtroom would have on Mortensen and Funk's testimony. We need comfortable witnesses. They are very important in finding out what happened in that house. Okay, so now going to another Kohberger and Taylor, I wouldn't say, well, maybe it is a trick. Maybe it is a trick. We know about the indictment, the dismissal. We had a history lesson the other day in court. We'll do a little bit of review on that. And it was very interesting to watch that hearing. And if you didn't watch it, you can go back here and watch it on LTL True Crime Podcast. We went over the hearing that day, interjected, and it was interesting, fascinating. So let's go here. This is from today, reporting on this. We'll get their insight on it and hear what they had to say.
Because the courts didn't like.
This morning, the murder trial against Brian Kohberger moving full speed ahead after a judge in Idaho refused to dismiss the whole case.
I appreciate the argument. I think it's really creative. I am going to deny that argument.
Prosecutors and defense
essentially what happened here is Judge gave a big old slappy slap to the defense and was like, you know what? I'm tired of the shenanigans. I'm tired of the tomfoolery. I'm tired of all of this. We need to move on. We need to push forward with this case, get it to trial, and find out what happened. I'm sure that this judge is feeling the pressure. I'm sure the community is feeling it as well. We want transparency in this case. We want this case to start. We want it to conclude in whatever way it is, guilty or not guilty, but we need to know, and we need to know what happened and what led up to this. What led up to this?
Lawyers battling in court for hours Thursday, the judge opting to keep cameras in the courtroom over Kohberger's objection. He's been charged with the stabbing death of 4 University of Idaho students, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves, in this off-campus home. His defense team arguing the prosecution wrongly instructed the grand jury to indict using a standard of proof lower than required.
There's clearly prejudice in the record that the court can see from what they were being instructed.
The judge finding no support for that claim, saying his hands are tied.
I am constrained by existing law. I can't just change.
I mean, the defense was going back and quoting law from like 1800. You know, it's getting insane. You know, they're doing every single thing to dismiss this indictment, and it makes one think, if they're going to this lengths to dismissing this indictment, you know, we've heard the alibi, driving around. I was just driving around. He was just driving around. That's all he likes to take long rides and drives at night. You know, took a long drive at night. That's what my client likes to do. He just likes to take long drives at night. You know, I was talking to someone the other day. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. If I'm in jail being accused of a quadruple homicide, I would be doing everything to speak out and say, I didn't do this. But this silence, it makes one think. I think the alibi is weak. I'll go on record to say that. I've been saying that on my channel. I think the alibi is weak. And I think it's a poor excuse because they know this guy is nailed and locked into that crime scene. And I know everybody will watch this and say, Brian, you know, you're wrong. You're wrong. I've said this all along. The evidence is all there, and it's becoming very, very clear. I mean, just look at this hearing the other day. Ann Taylor was sitting like a statue, almost beside herself. Couldn't believe what she had to do at this point for a defense to come up with this strategy. 1800s law. I mean, you really, in my opinion, digging low, really low.
The law.
Much of the legal wrangling in the case has been shrouded in secrecy. Hours of arguments earlier Thursday held behind closed doors.
The grand jury is secret, so that's why it's sealed.
Kohberger's defense team urging the judge to dismiss the case on other grounds as well, suggesting in court papers the grand jury was biased. There was insufficient evidence to charge him, and prosecutors withheld other evidence that could exonerate him. What exactly that evidence might be remains unknown. A judge entered a not guilty plea on Kohberger's behalf in May. The state has said it is seeking the death penalty.
All rise.
Meantime, the families of the victims are anxious for a trial date, as next month marks 1 year since the grisly killings rattled this tight-knit community.
They were amazing, amazing kids. in the prime of their life.
The mother of Ethan Chapin appearing at a true crime convention in September with a simple message.
Don't forget these kids.
We will never forget.
It's interesting. There were a lot
We
of
will never
issues dealt
forget.
with yesterday, but let's just, I mean, clearly
Promise you
the
that.
defense is throwing everything it can to kind of throw out this indictment, but the trial is headed full speed ahead from yesterday.
Sure. And I think this was sort of a Hail Mary motion that they put in about the jury instructions saying that they used the wrong standard of proof, just so people at home understand. It's never been the case that probable cause shouldn't be used in front of the grand jury. It's always been a lower standard in front of the grand jury. And for a trial, we all know it's beyond a reasonable doubt. Everyone's heard that a million times. But for a grand jury, it's lower. All you have to find is that it's more likely than not he committed the crime.
So it sounds like the defense is just trying to slow down this whole process. So where are we
And
on
it's
it?
been working,
If
right?
they're so confident that this guy didn't do it, why do they continue to keep slowing this down with every single motion that they can? I mean, come on, people. Y'all got to wake up. You all have to wake up. And I can't believe what I see in the comments and the message boards and the Facebook groups. Some of the stuff that is pulled up. I mean, come on. The evidence has been there in front of us the whole time. The writing is on the wall. I smell fried eggs. I smell fried bacon.
Where are we on a trial date? When's that going to be set?
So I think now that they've sort of cleared the decks, they've gotten rid of a lot of these motions the judge did yesterday. I think now we're going to see that trial date pretty soon because it's been a year. And look, murder
I think
cases
it's coming
take a
soon.
while. There's a lot of discovery both sides
think
have
it's
to
coming
trade,
soon.
especially a case like this, a lot of forensics. But it's been a year. I think the judge is going to set it pretty soon.
It did also seem like yesterday we got a sense of where the judge stands when it comes to cameras in the courtroom.
Yeah.
What do you think we might see during the trial with cameras?
Well, Koberger's team had made a big push to keep the cameras out. They said it's too prejudicial. And the state actually agreed and said, you know what? We too actually would be fine with no cameras because remember, they're worried about what would happen on appeal. If down the line an appellate court said, we think that was the wrong call, cameras shouldn't have been there, the whole case could get thrown out. So the state doesn't want that to happen. But the judge, interestingly, said, look, I'm going to keep the cameras for now. I'm going to exert a little bit more control. What that looks like, we don't know yet. He didn't spell it all out. But I think for now, we could hopefully expect to see cameras in there. And the families...
Can I say something? I don't know if you can hear this. Is this something that people have an obsession that they have to bring out their leaf blower every single day? It's crazy the amount of people around here that blow leaves all day long. It's insane. And that's why I can't wait until we get like the first snow around here because I know the leaf blowers are going to be away. It is insane the amount of people. I've been hearing this for the last, since what, 3 hours? The same guy for 3 hours since the sun has come up. All I've heard is leaf blowing. It's like insane. It's insane. I can't even get through a pipe. What are you doing? You were just there yesterday. Do you really need to blow off the 3 leaves that landed on your grass? Anyway, I digress. Let's go back to the story. Oh my God.
Pushing for it for transparency.
That's what's so interesting. You have both parties. The prosecution and the defense don't want the cameras, but the families do. So here the judge is trying to walk that line. The judges do. All right, Laura, thank you.
Laura.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah, thanks for watching. All right, let's go to dun dun dun. I wish I had one of those buttons. Dun dun dun. Let's go to all the conspiracy now. We know. Uh-oh. What is the FBI trying to do? Here we go. Here's the conspiracy. Dun dun dun. Well, it was a report the other day, and actually saw Brian Enton tweeting about this. He was at the King Road home the other day. FBI investigators seen at home where Idaho murder suspect Brian Koberger allegedly killed 4 students. Dun, dun, dun. University of Idaho officials say Koberger's extended trial deadline gives investigators more time to collect additional evidence. Let's go to the article here. We'll pull some of this out. FBI investigators were seen at the home where Brian Koberger allegedly killed 4 University of Idaho students last November. The trial for a former Washington State University criminologist graduate student was scheduled for October, but delayed. We know about that. Let's go this. As a result, the University of Idaho said in a Tuesday statement that the prosecution and investigators asked the college for access to the Moscow, Idaho home. They're out there planting stuff. Dun, dun, dun. Come on. You know it. You know the conspiracy. You can see they're just out there making a digital model of the house. I don't drink coffee. I'm on a natural high today. I'm well rested. I'm into this. And it's always a good day for a Koberger update. It is really interesting. It's really sad to see, that plywood come off all the doors and windows. And, it just kind of reveals the horror that happened there a year ago. And, it's something that I it's just not a good thought. It's not a good thought. I always say this, and I always go on record and say this, 1122 will always be ingrained in my brain. I'll never forget that address, 1122. So it goes on to say FBI investigators were at home on Tuesday and Wednesday gathering what is needed to construct visual and audio exhibits as well as physical model of the home itself for the university said, With the new extended timeline, the FBI is on the scene today, Tuesday, October 31st, which is really weird to do this on Halloween. People were freaking out about that too. And Wednesday, November 1st, to get documentation to construct visual and audio exhibits and physical model of the home where Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonzalez were unfortunately killed. The statement from the school reads. And you can see they're out here doing this physical modeling, taking digital models of the home, new photographs, which is very interesting. That's interesting. This Eve over here, they're photographing this Eve. As explained to the university, the visual displays take months to build and were not feasible under the timeline of October trial. While the measurements and details needed to build a model were taken at the time, the initial investigation, the FBI was using extended tile timeline to gather their own measurements and images. Now that the personal property has been removed from the premises, it continues. And that's the thing, everything is now opened up. All the furniture is out. I'm sure that a crime scene crew has gone in and cleaned. Now you can get clear digital scans of that area that didn't have all these objects in the way. Wow, it's just to see those photos. It's breathtaking. Families of the victim survivors were notified of the decision allowing investigators to re-enter the home, as well as the defense. The university still intends to demolish the home, but says it won't be this semester. In February, the University of Idaho announced the home or house would be demolished and a healing garden constructed in its place. Shannon Gray and the attorney for Kaylee Gonzalez's family previously criticized the decision to demolish the house, stating that it holds crucial evidence to the case. The home itself is an enormous evidentiary value, as well as being the largest of one most important piece of the evidence in this case. I have to agree. More photos. A clean wall where the stain was once visible is seen outside. I mean, just call the stain what it is. I mean, we know what it was. This thing about draining water, water pipe, rusty pipe water. We know what it was. We know what it was. Gray said the University in Idaho previously asked for victims' families' opinions on demolishing the house, and they proceeded to ignore those opinions and pursue their own self-interests. Replacing that plywood there. Again, this is from Fox News. Fox News out there. Some really great photos of the action that was going on down there in King Road. And this was on November 1st. All right, let's go over here. Let's hear from Banfield, King Road House.
For a very brief time, sunlight poured back into a very dark place. Place that has been dark for about a year, where some very dark things happened. They pried the plywood off of the windows and the doors at 1122 King Road in Idaho, where those 4 students were murdered almost a year ago. And they did it so that FBI and prosecutors could go back And look at them up there in the window. This was video today. They've been at it for 2 days, leaning out a window, looking at all sorts of possibilities, measurements, we're told. Pretty fascinating, though, that it was supposed to be torn down, and yet that plywood came off. And again, after they were done today, the plywood went back on. Brian Enton was watching it all. He is live right now, our News Nation senior national correspondent. Brian, it's distressing to think that they had that much work to do at a place behind you that's now boarded up again that they were going to tear down. What did they get? Anything special that you were able to ascertain from your position?
Everybody's wondering what this piece of equipment is called. It's called a Faro, F-A-R-O. It does 3D digital scans, and it's very impressive what it can do. It's very, very impressive. So I'm sure that they went in, they digitally modeled the crime scene when it first happened. And then when everything went out, it makes a clear interpretation to go back into the home where there's no furniture, nothing is askewed, the crime scene has basically been clean. They can go in and regenerate a physical model of the house. So a clear physical model. So if they need to show, an after, maybe some measurements on a particular wall or floor, it won't be obstructed by furniture, any of the victims, anything like that. So it's very, very impressive. You can go over and watch Duty Ron. He had a Faro crime scene. He had a crime scene investigator come on and talk about the Faro machine, and actually has a live stream up about it. And it's interesting. They showed actually what the Faro machine can do when it scans a criminal crime scene. And it's very, very, very impressive. All right, we'll move on here. Banfield. Brian Enton.
They're not telling us. Basically, what they're saying on the record is that they wanted to do 3D imaging, that the FBI wanted to bring in their 3D imaging cameras, which we saw, by the way. They had them all set up outside, and then they went in, what we could tell from the outside looking through the windows, every single room in the house. They had the windows open. They took all the boards off. They also seemed to be using drones over the house.
Wow.
They were going in and out of the house all day again today. So it was a busy day again today. And then around 4 o'clock, the FBI packed everything up. FBI left. And then the Moscow police boarded the entire house up again. And you can see it's all closed off again behind me tonight.
All of this at the same time that Brian Kohberger's aunt broke her silence and said a couple of things. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so she spoke to a different publication, The Sun, and said that she was concerned about his mental health, said that she thought that he may be suicidal or could possibly be suicidal in the future. What's interesting is that is really a contradiction to what we have been reporting and the sources that we have, who say his mental health is actually the same as it has always been, that he is not suicidal, that he is not on suicide watch, that he's still in solitary confinement, that he is very much studying and a part of the preparation for his case. I saw him in court last week. He looked pretty much the same as he'd always looked to me. So they're sort of, going against what that aunt said when she spoke to The Sun.
And she said she thinks he'll be found guilty. Shocking. Brian Enton, thank you. Appreciate all the work out
I like
there.
the
Thank you
sarcasm from Banfield. All right, we'll go on more about the King Road house. We have Banfield again. Let's hear from that. And here we go.
Welcome to you both. Brian, we were just so incredibly close multiple times to that house coming down. I thought it was a misprint when I read what I read this morning.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you said it, Ashley. The family trusted their guts. They have been fighting and fighting and fighting for this house not to be torn down. And all the experts on the case there in Idaho were telling them they were crazy. The prosecution signed off on the demolition. The defense signed off on the demolition. The university.
Let me just pull this up really quick. So Harlot says, I thought they already did a fully mapped for the models before they released it. It's just kind of ridiculous that they didn't. So you have to think, when we just talked about this a couple of minutes ago, you have a complete crime scene where people are dead. There's blood everywhere. There's furniture in the house. There may be rugs on the floor, plants in the house, dishes everywhere, whatever you want to say, living furniture, how everybody lives, clothes everywhere. You're scanning that scene. I'm looking right now. I have my work clothes up. I hang my pants over my door. I have my shirt hung up. So if I'm trying to get a clear view of that door, it's going to be obstructed. you take everything out of the home and you can go back in and 3D model this house. I have no problem with this. You know, if you need a clear representation of that space, and maybe they're trying to go back in, do some audio experiences too, where there are not furniture inside that house. You want to be able to hear, can you hear someone's voice from particular levels, or can you hear movement from particular levels on that house unobstructed? And then they probably did those experiments when they first went in there, first went in and mapped the house. They probably did audio experience as well, because when you have furniture, you have things inside the house, it soaks up the acoustics inside that environment. That's why people put posters on their wall or a painting on their wall, or they may lay a area rug down on the floor. That helps dampen reverb or reverberation inside that house. If you move everything out, you have nothing in there, that room is going to sound larger than it is if you had items inside that house. So that's why they're going back in and doing this, so they can show a before and an after. So you have a before, which would be the total crime scene, everything inside the house. You have your audio experiments. Then you go out and you take everything out. Everything is clear. You have a blank palette and you create those experiments again. And you do your 3D modeling. So you have all of that evidence when you go to court. Here, Your Honor, this is what it sounds like at 10 decibels or whatever. I'm just saying. And then you can present that to the jury and they have to make a decision on those before and after. So I think that's probably what was happening when they were there doing this and recreating this environment and rescanning it.
Idaho has sure been in a hurry to tear that house down. Well, guess what?
I know a lot about like reverb and reverberation and how things absorb sound and how things echo. I was in a band for many years. I played in bands. I played in music halls. So there's different ways that environments can sound, even just by the stage construction that, you know, the stage that you're standing on. There are some stages now that they build out of a composite material versus wood. Wood absorbs that reverberation while you're on stage. And sometime with these new composite stages, it's too bright. So you get a lot of reverb there, and your rig, if you're a guitar player, bass player, drums, or whatever, it will sound different on stage. It might not be as clear. So you want to go in and test these environments with everything that's in there and everything that's out. And that will end any debate inside court when you present this as evidence. All right, let's keep playing through here.
The house didn't get taken down right away, and there they were back there today. You had the new video. We had exclusive video. It wasn't just a couple of FBI agents, Ashley, going in and out. It was an entire team. For whatever reason, they decided
Sure,
they
that may
needed
be
to
true.
remap out the
Thank you
house
for the
to
update,
build
Trace.
this model that they
Everything,
planned to build.
you know, that's the thing.
They had all sorts.
Everything in our world, technology now moves very fast. You know, and Trace makes a good point. You know, you got to think. You look at the iPhone. You may get I'm still on the 12. You have the iPhone 12, and then literally 3 or 4 months from now, they're pushing the 13, and 3 or 4 months from now, the 14, 15, whatever. Things now in technology move so fast. So if a software update or an equipment update is there, why not go back in and redo this? The house is still there. It's gone through the court. The judge approved. Both sides approved to have this done. There's no problem with this. It's not like the FBI went in and kicked the fucking door in and said, we're just going in and going to do this. You have to go through the court. So everybody agreed to this. And they even said the defense was down there. So the prosecution was there, the defense was there, the FBI, everybody was there that needed to be there. So let's get all that rumor out of the way. And this was agreed on. So there's no problem in what they're doing. There's no problem, in my opinion, of what they're doing. All right, we'll keep playing through here.
Sorts of specialized equipment out there today, 3D imaging machines. They had a drone up over the house. None of this would have been possible if the original plans had gone through. And you said it. It wasn't just one plan. It was over and over again.
This case is so important. 4 lives are at stake. 4 innocent lives were taken. I have no problem with investigators going back in and saying, hey, let's take a look at that again. I have no problem with the defense to go in and say, hey, let's take a look at that again. I have no problem with the prosecution to go in and say, let's take a look at that again. We need to make sure that this case is clear and transparent and everything is put out there without a stone unturned, because you already know if something seems funny, oh man, we're going to be talking about this for 10, 15 years down the road. And we will always continue to talk about this case, but I think you're getting my point. All right, let's keep playing through.
That the university and the prosecution wanted to tear the house down, and thank goodness that the family, the Gonzalez family particularly, kept fighting, because obviously police found value in going back in the house today.
So Gigi, jump in on what Brian just said. Obviously, they saw value in going back in. I don't understand how 12 months later, they can just now be seeing the value of going back in to take these measurements. The house has not changed. Everything is exactly the same. And there was meticulous investigation that went on for months.
Yeah, they did some measurements in that initial investigation, but the difference is that everything was still in the house. So what the FBI did, thank goodness they didn't tear it down. You can't put toothpaste back in a tube. Once it's down, it's down. But the house is empty at this point, and now you have this trial delayed indefinitely. These models take months to put together, to get all the data analyzed. So the FBI thought it's a good time, with the trial being delayed, to go in there and do our Faro scanning and get their own measurements separate from the initial investigation with the house being empty.
So Brian, when I was reading the statement from Steve Gonzalez and Xana Kernodle's family, they released a joint statement together. And I will tell you this, that I texted back and forth with Ethan Chapin's mom and said, do you have any thoughts about this? And she said, no, I don't. And she's been very much like that since the beginning. This is extraordinarily painful for everyone involved, and everybody reacts differently. But that was the reaction from Stacey Chapin, that she did not have the same reaction that these other family members did. Brian, when Steve said, Steve has taken the lead, but this is Steve and also the Kernodle family. It is our understanding that the King Road residence will not be demolished until after the trial has concluded. Do they have information that we don't have? Is this now fait accompli? It is staying up, and it could take years to get that trial, to finish up.
So who said it wasn't properly done? What channel were you watching? Was that like Dago or someone like that? One of those weird channels? Were they talking about that stuff? Who said it wasn't properly done before it was released? What channel said that? What news article said that? Can you drop a link? Email it to me. Let's talk live podcast @gmail.com. I'll pull it up right now. Who said that? What newsprint said that it wasn't properly done the first time?
They have been told, Ashley, is different from what the university is putting out publicly today, because when they made the announcement today that the FBI and police were going to be going back into the house, they said in black and white, the university still intends to demolish the house, not this semester, though. So, I mean, look, it's no surprise. They've said all along they want to demolish the house. They want this
Harsh
house
reality
down.
say that?
I mean, I don't know if it's a PR thing.
Was it harsh reality?
It's very, very sad to have right there next to
what
the
channel
campus,
said that?
but they're not
Send the
giving
link
up
to me.
on
I'll
that.
pull
They're
it up.
still not saying officially to us that they're going to keep the house standing through the trial. Perhaps Steve has some different information.
And if I'm wrong, then I stand.
Yeah, that stood out
corrected.
to me. Gigi, listen. The university, we don't know their motives, right? Like, let's be honest. There are a lot of students at the University of Idaho that are probably affected in some kind of PTSD from what happened there, and they're reminded of it on a regular basis. It is an eyesore. It is a horrifying memory. It is a traumatizing thing. It is a trigger for a lot of people. So I get it. If the University of Idaho wants that gone and wants a beautiful park to remain, I could list off the top of my head dozens of.
That's the thing, is like, if you're going to put that stuff out here, come into the chat, you got to have something to follow it up. And believe me, just send me the link. If there's a news article there that quotes that this investigation is done wrong, I will pull it up and I will stand corrected. But you can't come in here and say things that I haven't seen. I've investigated this case for a year. I've been reporting on it and talking about it for a year. I've not seen any news article out there that has said that things were done wrong. If it's done wrong and it's in the media, send me a link. Let's talk live podcast at gmail.com. I'll pull it up, and I stand corrected. I will stand corrected today, but I haven't seen anything. So you can't come in here and say that stuff if you don't have anything to back it up. Are you hearing that on another YouTube channel? Is that another true crime channel that streams 14 hours a day and brings multiple thousands of people up on their panel? Is it one of those channels?
Crime scenes where that has happened. Beautiful parks and memorials have been erected in the place where horrors have transpired. So I don't besmirch the university unless it's just for PR, which I don't know. It may not be. But what is the rest of the community there saying, Gigi? Like students and residents of Moscow, like how are they weighing in on this?
Yeah, kind of what you just said. It's very traumatizing to see that house because there are students that live in very close proximity within eyeshot of that house. They see it multiple times a day, and then they know what happened there. So the general consensus is everybody's ready for it to come down, but I think everybody also could understand that it comes down when the time's right. And maybe that is after trial, as we see here. They're doing work. We want a conviction that sticks. If a jury finds him guilty, let's get everything we can before we tear the house down, and then, make plans to make it something nice of remembrance. But right now, it's still a crime scene. It's still evidence. And we're seeing that today and tomorrow with the FBI in there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, justice for those 4 innocent kids should be paramount to all of our feelings. I mean, I really do believe that the families and their memory really deserve the best shot at litigation and prosecution and defense that can be offered in this case. And when it comes to that, I mean it. The defense deserves to have that place.
Excuse me.
And the prosecutors deserve to have that place. I was astounded when they agreed to, to demolish it together. Hey, Gigi and Brian.
All right, we're going to get out of here. We're going to go to Law and Crime Network, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the DNA hearing that happened the other day. It's about a 14-minute video. Let's watch through this.
Guy frankly was created for is to give that level of expertise that local law enforcement just doesn't have or access to.
Nearly 1 year after the quadruple homicide that shocked the nation, FBI agents are headed back to the scene of the crime in the University of Idaho murders.
They're going to take one last crack at this, so to speak, and they're going to be able to argue that this was a fresh look, that they didn't do anything. They're not retesting the same stuff. This is new stuff that they're testing.
It's a case Law and Crime Network has followed since the beginning, when the bodies of 4 college students were found brutally murdered on November 13th of last year. All 4 victims were students at the University of Idaho in Moscow. For weeks, we covered the developing story as authorities gave few clues about the investigation. But in late December, suspect Brian Koberger was arrested and later charged in all 4 murders.
It alleges that the defendant, Brian C. Koberger, on or about November 13th of 2022, in Lake County,
that feels so long ago.
did unlawfully enter
That first hearing
located
feels so long
at
ago.
1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder.
Now, FBI agents are back at the King Road crime scene for what's likely the final time. Former FBI agent Colin Schmidt tells Law and Crime Network the investigation will be strategic ahead of Koberger's jury trial.
It appears that they wanted the evidence response team of the FBI, since they're having this pause in the court case, to go in there and start doing 3D modeling of the crime scene.
Prosecutors say Koberger is responsible for the stabbing deaths of Zana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonzalez. Investigators used DNA recovered from a knife sheath left at the crime scene to connect Koberger to the case. He was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania before he was extradited to Idaho.
Detectives arrested 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger in Albrightsville.
Man, can you feel the angst in Fry's voice there? Wow. I mean, just the anxiety.
Pennsylvania, on a warrant for murder
of this.
Ethan, Zana, Madison, and Kaylee.
Emotionally, he's holding back the
Koberger's
emotions.
been held at the Latah County Jail in Moscow, only about a mile and a half from the murder scene.
I'd like to see like a nice waterfall fountain there or something like that. I think that would be really nice. You know, a nice garden area with a waterfall fountain. If they're going to do any type of memorial, I think that would be really beautiful. You know, water is always a very calming sound. I have a place that I go to here in my local city that has a very spiritual place, and they have a lot of fountains there, and it's just nice to go and sit on a bench on a really nice spring or summer day, fall day, and listen. If you're having a bad day, let all your thoughts, get out of your head and listen to that water flow. It's just nice. It's very calming. All right, let's keep playing through.
Set to stand trial last month, but that was delayed indefinitely after prosecutors argued they needed more time to create models of the home to present to jurors. Schmidt says that's what this new investigation is all about.
The FBI ERT, evidence response team, is going in there and they want to get a really perfect 3D model of what happened. So when they have to present all this evidence in court, the jury is going to really know exactly what happened.
As Schmidt explains, investigators will use the Faro technique, 3D technology that, according to its website, quote, allows you to capture complete, accurate views of the on-scene evidence and generate photorealistic 360-degree views of the space. Schmidt says the FBI has been utilizing this technique for years.
I was part of the San Bernardino shooting investigation back in 2015 as a supervisor. And during that investigation, our evidence response team actually went in, and unfortunately they had to do this with the bodies still in place. And they set up lasers, and they were using the Faro technique, or the Faro equipment back then. And basically what that means is they're using LiDAR technology to actually create a 3D model of the crime scene, and then so that it can be presented in court.
Amazing piece of technology.
It was done in two phases, one with the bodies in place, and then once all the bodies were removed from the San Bernardino shooting site, they did it again to make sure they had an accurate depiction.
So that just essentially backed up what I was talking about 15 minutes ago. They went in there, they did it when the crime scene was full, and now they went back today, or not today, a couple days ago, and went and did it when it was empty to get that space.
Actually what happened.
For the University of Idaho crime scene, Schmidt tells us they'll use the Faro technique to collect images and measurements.
So using LiDAR, believe it or not, we have LiDAR on our phones. So it's actually this little button right here on our iPhones, and it's used basically, and what LiDAR stands for is light detection and ranging technology. And it's used for 3D crime scene reconstruction, but for our purposes on phones, we use it for low light photos to basically get an autofocus.
But investigators will have to work fast. The University of Idaho, that owns the home, agreed to open it to FBI agents for only 2 days, October 31st and November 1st.
2 days means 48 hours. So they'll be in there for 48 hours. They'll be in there round the clock. They have almost limitless resources. So in this case, if they need to bring in teams from LA, from Seattle, from New York, all these teams have the same training, and then some of them have specialized training. So there's no doubt that they'll stay in there, and 2 days will, obviously the FBI wants 5 days or 10 days, but in 2 days they will plan for it and make sure they have the appropriate resources there to get the job done.
As Law & Crime Network reported, the university intends to demolish the home, but those plans were stalled back in January when the defense motioned to preserve the crime scene. Family members of the victims agree with this move. A statement from the Gonzalez family and Jeff Kernodle, the father of Xana, reads in part, quote, as the family has stressed from the beginning of the investigation, the King Road house is one of the most critical pieces of evidence in the case.
It's true.
We are grateful that the University of Idaho listened to the family's concerns and delayed the demolition of the home. Isn't that the whole point of not destroying evidence? You may not know if you need it until later, or it may become more important when a jury hears evidence in the case. According to Schmidt, jurors are the driving force in this new investigation. He says,
I mean, if you have time before a case starts in its entirety, why not go back and do this? I mean, it could aid in the defense. It could aid in the prosecution. Why not go back and do this, right? I mean, I have no problem with what went on. I have no problem.
Prosecutors likely feel the 3D model is vital to their case.
This was such a horrific crime. The prosecutors there, they want to get it right, and you only get one chance in front of a jury to get it right. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So they have this opportunity to
DM.
put this evidence
Appreciate
in
you.
front of
Thank
the
you.
jury that is going to be absolute precise depiction of what happened, so the jury understands how horrific this was and how he did what he did, because there is quite a few questions about, well, how could he go in and do these things, and the survivors didn't hear him or didn't
That's the most
understand or
important thing.
didn't step up and stop him from doing this. Well, this 3D model is
Yes,
going to show
tiny
the jury,
pizza
well,
cult.
this is how he
I'm
did
gonna
it.
have a tiny
This
pizza
is
today
how he was able to get away with
for
doing
lunch
these
before I go
horrific
to work.
things without anybody hearing him as he was basically executing his victims.
Schmidt says information collected during this new investigation could help put things into perspective for future jurors.
Look, the most important thing for a juror is to understand context, especially in a murder investigation or murder scene. So apparently there was a sheath, I believe, that was found, and the
Pull at the
juror
top.
needs to see how that sheath, where the sheath was found
Tiny
in
pizzas keep my
conjunction
weight
with the
down.
bodies, so they can make that connection,
Keeps my
because
weight
everything
down.
is
Tiny pizza.
layered. Because the sheath led to his identification using forensic genealogy. And then why would a sheath be there? You know, all these questions, because ultimately the objective of the FBI ERT is to anticipate any questions that the jurors might have, and
Just a
answer those
clear
questions before they.
This is what I just talked about. I talked about all of this. It answers all of the questions. It puts all of the evidence out there. There are no questions. There's nothing that's going to come up if they didn't do this and the jury goes, well, what would have it sound like, or what would have it looked like if everything wasn't inside the house? Bam, you got it. It's all right there. It's going to answer most of, if not all, those questions. So, that's why I have no problem with them doing this. Allison, thank you so much for the $4.99. She says hashtag for Idaho 4. Thank you. I don't have my bell over here, but I would give you a bell. So thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, let's keep playing through.
Even come into the juror's mind.
But more than just viewing a model of the King Road home, experts say jurors could be taken to the scene of the crime.
And I anticipate that's going to happen.
Thank you, Candy. I appreciate that.
There's going to be an argument by the defense not to see this 3D modeling before they walk through, because then the defense is going to say they're being biased by what the FBI's depiction or of the crime scene. So I'm sure the jurors are going to want to see what happened there. They're going to walk through. They're only going to see basically completely empty rooms. I mean, the carpet's going to be ripped up because the FBI is going to pull out of that carpet, take it back to the lab, and go through it in a microscopic manner.
Right. That's what they say, look, this is what I said. I've said in this case all along. Everybody just looks at what was on that PCA, and then they sit here and they go, oh, well, there's nothing. You got to think. They're going to take that carpet that were in and around those beds. If there was carpet there, say there was an area rug, they're going to take that and take it back to the lab and process that. That's going to have skin cells, hair that may have fallen, DNA inside and on that rug. We still haven't heard all of the full DNA evidence, and I believe there was a lot more. I believe there's a lot more. But that's what I mean. There's so much more that was processed in this crime scene that you don't even know about. You don't even know about.
Oh, they're not, in my opinion, they're not going to get a lot of context from these empty rooms. I think the 3D modeling is going to give them a lot more context. But I anticipate that even though there's going to be argument why you're not going to get anything out, I think the jurors still want to go just to see, just in their own mind, hey, what really happened?
Right.
But long before jurors would ever set foot in the house, investigators will use this time to look for new evidence.
Now, the first phase of this is the ERT. The FBI is going to go in. They're going to do another search, and they're going to look for hairs, follicles, any DNA, anything that might be missing, any microscopic pieces of evidence that they might be able to draw another connection to the person that's on trial.
I don't know. It could be another connection. Maybe it comes out at trial. Maybe there was help. We don't know. But you got to think, and I've said this all along, it was a party house. It was a party house. There was hundreds of kids that went in and out of that house. So yes, there would be DNA evidence or DNA from other people in there. But the main point is, and I don't want you to lose sight of this, DM, because this is where all the other channels try to skew everything here. I don't want you to lose sight of this. The bottom line is this, and I've said it all along. A knife sheath was found in the bedroom on a bed near victims that were brutally massacred. And on that knife sheath, it has Brian Kohberger's DNA. The bottom line is this: at the end of the day, and I want to make this very clear, his defense team is going to have to defend that. It sounds corny, but they're going to have to defend that. I don't want you to lose sight of that. Keep that in mind. At the end of the day, the knife sheath was found there, and it had Brian Kohberger's DNA on it. 2 dead victims in that room.
Right now. Then after that, then they'll start setting up their equipment and the LiDAR technology, and then they'll start creating their 3D models of what happened in that house.
What is the probability that they find something almost a year after these murders? You were talking about microscopic hairs or some sort of evidence. I mean, is that likely that they could have passed over it the first couple times that they were investigating?
It is likely, depending on the and I'm giving the lawyer answer. It depends. So it depends on what level of evidence response team they had to go in there the first time.
Schmidt believes this will be the final time investigators collect anything from the home.
So obviously, I'm biased.
I'm not a
to the
BK
FBI as the
sympathizer.
IT. They're, in my opinion,
I don't
the best in the
sympathize with
world.
BK.
If they were used the first time, there's a very high
fried eggs.
probability they were going to get 99%
Fried
of
bacon.
the evidence. You never get 100% because it's simply
I'm
an
not a
impossibility.
sympathizer.
So the likelihood
I'm
that
gonna find
you're
that
going to
here on
find
this
more
channel.
evidence is fairly low because it's already been gone through several times. Plus, when you add in the concept of transference, then if there was any evidence in there, it may have been destroyed, or it may have been basically tainted, so to speak, because then you're going to have other transference from investigators, their hairs and follicles, their things that might be in there. And then when you have that, essentially nullifies anything else you find in there, because then there's a built-in argument that that anything you find in there was brought in versus it being there before the investigators got there.
The nearly 1 year since the murders makes evidence collection more difficult, Schmidt says. But the same goes for the initial investigation. According to court documents, a surviving roommate, Dylan Mortensen, labeled in the affidavit as DM, said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you," just before 4:30 on the morning of the murders. The court document goes on to say Mortensen saw the suspect, describing, quote, the figure as 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. At the time, Mortensen said she stood in a frozen shock phase. It wasn't until hours later at 11:58 a.m. the 911 call for the murderers came in. According to Schmidt, that initial time lapse could have caused issues.
The longer the time elapses between the crime and when professionals get there to search, there's a higher probability that the scene is going to be tainted with people walking in there that don't know what they're doing. They're potentially moving bodies, moving sheets. What else, could happen? We don't know. I don't know what happened between the time of the crime and the time 911 was called. I can only suspect that the people, the non-law enforcement that found these victims panicked and they didn't know what to do. They're not law enforcement. They're not going to think about preserving a crime scene. They're going to, number one, they're going to think about how they preserve their own lives. Is the bad guy still there?
Right.
So to answer your question, yes, that the 2 or 3 hours it took between the time of the crime and the time that the call was made, there was likely a lot of transference going on. And that's something that the FBI is going to try to overcome, that concept or argument by the defense, by doing this crime scene reconstruction and being able to tell the jury, okay, if there was any transference, it was minimal, because this is exactly what appeared to have happened.
But Schmidt says if there's anything left to be found at the crime scene, FBI investigators will find it.
I think it really comes down to the FBI. In my biased opinion, is the best evidence response team in the world. They are the ones that they train everybody else in the world as well, and they have the lab as well as they have teams there that they may or may not fly out, as well as all 56 field offices have an ERT. And this is the type of stuff that the FBI, frankly, was created for, is to give that level of expertise that local law enforcement just doesn't have or access to.
As of now, Kohberger's trial is delayed indefinitely. And because of
I'm going to just bump out of this really quick and get to the next video here. I did have, actually, let me pull this article up really quick. I only got a little bit more time here before I need to go. So again, the big thing yesterday was Judge in Kohberger's trial sets date for December 1st deadline for DNA evidence. A lot of fight over that. I believe yesterday there was a hearing. There was a hearing. I don't think that Kohberger or Ann Taylor was in the courtroom of the courthouse. They're actually down in the basement on a Zoom, which is very interesting. And they had a little bit of debate over the DNA evidence. Again, Kohberger's team is asking for genetic genealogy as part of his discovery. Prosecutors say there was delay getting records from the FBI. Familiar DNA used to identify Kohberger's plays crucial role in case. I'm going to get through this really, really quick, and I have a short video, and then I got to get out of here. Judge overseeing the trial for Brian Kohberger, who faces murder charges on death of 4 University of Idaho students, set a deadline for prosecutors to turn over DNA evidence crucial to the case. John Judge previously agreed to review the familiar DNA evidence prosecutors used to help identify Kohberger as a suspect to determine what information would necessarily be turned over to the defense, a move which some regard as a win for the Kohberger defense team. In court on Thursday, prosecutors pinned the blame on delaying in getting the genetic genealogy information on the process of obtaining reports from the FBI and the private lab used by investigators. Judge set a deadline of December 1st, 2023, saying it's previewed and reviewed all evidence at one time. He did not note potential for future delays. The Department of Justice has not produced or requested reports by the deadline. News Nation, Brian Enton noted genetic genealogy is how prosecutors identified Kohberger as a suspect, so the evidence could be hugely important to Kohberger's defense team, but there is a privacy concerns with the information because the names of the genetic information and individuals totally unrelated to the case could not be included in the family trees in the report. So that's basically what we have there. I'm going to go on to this video here by Banfield again. Play this. We're going to get out. Just want to remind everybody, please, if you're first time over here, make sure to subscribe, smash that like button, and follow along. Turn on your bell notifications. I think I'm going to start doing some more of these day shows before I go to work in the afternoon. If I can get up on time, have something prepared, and just mix up the night and day shows, because I know there's only certain times that people can get in, and maybe we get on a schedule, a sense of that. But I really enjoyed this day show today. We got about another 6 minutes here. So I want to thank everybody for being here today on LTL True Crime Podcast. And if you're new to my channel, please go over on my homepage, check out all my videos. We've done extensive live streams on the Idaho 4 case. I am now covering the Chelsea Grim case as well, the Chelsea Grim disappearance, very personal to me in that. And tonight at 8 p.m. tonight, I want to let everybody know that I'm going to have a special premiere here on the LTL True Crime Podcast that I will be, I put together a montage of all of the interviews that I have done here on my channel with friends of Chelsea Grim and associates of Chelsea Grim. There were 3 interviews. We're going to get that put together in one video for you all tonight. I won't have content live tonight, but I will have that premiering here at 8 p.m. of the montage of the interviews of first here on LTL Podcast, and exclusive interviews. You won't find those anywhere else on anybody's channels relating to Chelsea Grim. I interviewed a close friend of hers. I interviewed Elias, the controversial individual connected to the controversial GoFundMe account. And I have been in contact with PJ, the ex-boyfriend of Chelsea Grim, and I'm trying to get him on the show. So PJ, if you're watching, come on the show. We want to hear from you. All right, let's get through this 6-minute video, and then I got to blast out of here, take off on the mothership, and actually go do my day job. All right, let's play this.
So there was a little bit of other news as well when it came to this case today, and I want to tell you about that. It's a little bit convoluted, so I'm going to try and make it as simple as possible. The judge did what some people think was give a gift to the defense, because the judge has said, regarding all that DNA technique that the prosecution's been using, I get it. I get it, defense attorneys. I get it, Brian Kohberger. You want to peek in their file and you think you deserve the discovery. Normally, that's not so unusual, but you don't get everything in an investigation. In a discovery, you don't get everything. You don't get every single police officer's notations in every book that they might have done an interview, right? You don't get everything. And the prosecutors are saying, that's right. Our DNA technique that we used, genealogy, you know, the good old 23andMe stuff, we didn't use it for any court stuff. We didn't use it for warrants. We didn't use it for anything where you deserve to see that work product. What we did was we figured out who his family was, and then we went and did good gumshoe policing. We collected their trash, and then we did the old swab of his cheek. And the swab of Brian's cheek, the police say, matches that knife sheath at 1122 King Road. So what the prosecutors are saying is that you don't get to see every piece of work product. You don't get to see everything. And quite frankly, we don't think we need to share the genealogy with you, because it was just sort of, it was like the lie detector test. It just led us to more information that we could investigate. Defense saying, nope, we want it all. And the judge is now saying, yeah, you know what, I'm going to take a look at that. I think I'm going to go into chambers without all the cameras and everybody listening, and we're going to take a peek and see what they can and what they can't see. So to figure that out and how that works, Dave Ehrenberg is with me. He's the state attorney for Palm Beach County. Dave, it's so cool to see how confusing. I just call it, you know, DNA. But it is cool to see how this familial DNA has woven its way into American jurisprudence and become complicated. Do you see this as complicated, or do you just see this as placating the defense and moving on?
Actually, it's been going on for a while, but law enforcement hasn't wanted the public to glimpse behind the curtain because, number one, they don't want the public, when they sign on to these genealogical websites, 23andMe, for example, to not click the box allowing your information to become public, because law enforcement has been using this stuff to catch serial killers, cold cases. And if the word gets out that your information, your DNA could be viewed by law enforcement, maybe people don't check that box, and then you can't crack these cases. One of the reasons why the prosecutors did not want the defense lawyers to see all this stuff is because they don't want the cousin, the third cousin, or whoever the relative is of Brian Kohberger to be harassed. And they don't want that person to be some red herring at trial. Aha, this is the real killer. He's got the DNA. And besides, what privacy interest, Ashley, does Brian Kohberger have in the DNA of his second or third cousin? None.
So is this one of those things? There's a fancy expression in the law. I always love it. It's called fruit of the poisonous tree, meaning if you do something that isn't quite right and it leads to really good information in the case that could nail you to the cross, you all of a sudden can't use that because it was born from that poisonous tree. Is this one of those circumstances where the familial genealogy that led them to Pennsylvania, that led them to Brian Kohberger's dad's house, that led them to believe we got a family member and someone in this family member must have a white Elantra?
So I know that everybody's asking about Chelsea Grim right now because I've been doing a lot about it. All you need to do is go to the LTL True Crime Podcast homepage and look under the playlist Chelsea Grim Disappearance. It has all the live streams and videos that I have done about Chelsea Grim. It is very, very important that people take the time and at least go through some of those videos. We need to bring Chelsea home. I feel just personally connected to that case now. I just have this fear that it's not going to be talked about. It needs to be talked about. I will continue to talk about it. I don't know at what length. It's not going to be every day because, in my opinion, the lifeline to boots on the ground coverage has now stopped. And that's just a day for a further conversation. I talked a lot about this last night in my Chelsea Grim Live, but I urge everybody go over to the homepage, Chelsea Grim disappearance, and please watch that. And tonight I will have a premiere here at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on LTL True Crime Podcast of all of the exclusive interviews that I have gotten in talking with a few people that knew or were close to Chelsea. You're not going to want to miss that montage. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on LTL True Crime Podcast. All right, let's keep playing through this. I need to get out soon and go to work. Ugh. All right, let's keep playing.
And fit the bill. And there was Brian Koberger. Is it possible at all that all of this could be thrown out because of the poisonous tree? I don't think it's poisonous, but is it?
Actually, that's what the defense is hoping. That is like their only chance here, I think, because once they had the DNA swab of Koberger's cheek, it was a match. And how did they get to that swab? Well, you laid it out correctly.
Boom.
They had to first get the DNA from the sheath of the knife. Then they ran it through the databases, and there was no criminal in their database on file that matched. So what they did was they took it to the genealogical database, and they found a relative. And they compared the relatives who owned a white Hyundai Elantra, and that's how they found Koberger, and that's how they got the swab of his cheek. So if you could suppress the initial genealogical DNA, the thinking is everything else.
I've been in contact with her regularly.
Poisonous tree. I think
regularly.
It's very unlikely
have
this
conversations.
will work, but it's all they got.
So I just want to remind everybody that this is exactly what we're talking about. It's the K-bar knife. This is not the knife, obviously. I don't have the piece of evidence here in the studio, but this is the piece of evidence that we're talking about. And it's this little snap right here.
Machine.
Right there.
Brutal
that snap.
killing machine.
The DNA that they discovered was in this little snap. Maybe you can see it better against my white shirt. This little snap right here. The DNA was somewhere in this little snap. And so that was a minuscule sample, and they did the genealogical tree, and then they found the Koberger family and went to Pennsylvania and got the garbage and had a hit. And then got Koberger and swabbed his cheek. So it's super interesting. Dave Ehrenberg, let's meet back up when they finally decide what's going to happen with this. Because I'm like, it's, we're flying the plane as we're fixing it kind of thing with this genealogy. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Ashley, and happy Halloween.
Hey, happy Halloween to you too, and all the nerds that you've probably gone through tonight. I'm seriously on a sugar rush. Thank you for.
All right. Banfield. Banfield. All right, guys and ladies, thank you so much for joining the LTL True Crime Podcast here today on this Friday morning. I think I'm going to start mixing up and doing some of these morning shows, like half and half. We'll do night shows, morning shows, and just bringing in a different crowd or another crowd that just can't see me at night, and vice versa. So that's going to conclude our Brian Koberger presentation for today. Again, please, if you have time, go over to the LTL True Crime Podcast homepage. Check out my tab that is Chelsea Grim disappearance. I want to keep this case out there in the media. I want to keep this case alive. I'm going to try to dedicate at least one stream a week to go over and continue to talk about this if I get any new inside information or any new information. And I'm going to tell you right now, I am the only podcast that I know of, the only true crime podcast that has had exclusive interviews with Chelsea's friends and a said friend or whoever you want to call it. I haven't seen any other material out there. Again, I also have the full body cam footage here on my channel that we've only seen at least 2 minutes of it released. And I have more footage coming soon, probably next week. So you're not going to want to miss all that footage because we have it all here exclusive on the LTL podcast. So thank you again, my friends. And I'm just going to put this number out there. Chelsea, if you are watching, or Chelsea, or if anybody knows where Chelsea is, please call the Coconino Sheriff's Department at 928-774-4523. Or if Chelsea is watching, call my business line, 774-855-9400. I will get you help. I promise. I will get you help. All right, my friends, that's going to be it today. Thank you so much for watching the LTL podcast. We were live on 3 platforms today. The home base here on YouTube, right here live. We were live on Twitter and live on Facebook as well. I will see you all soon tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please come over, give that video a like on its give it some love on the premiere tonight. You can have the full chat. It's going to be a full chat premiere. I will not be live tonight, but at least you'll get that for the night crew. Okay, I will be back soon. Thank you all for watching, and everybody have an amazing day. Take care. Bye.